Today starts a several part series about how we paid off $48,000 in debt in under 2 years as modest income makers. We never cracked $100,000. We mostly worked off of one income, with me working part time while raising the kids. So, how did we do this? I wanted to really break down the different areas of life and talk about ways that we saved money. And then I'll also do a video at the end all about the ways that we added extra money into our budget each month and how we went about that. And I think back to 20 years ago when I was going through my divorce, and I remember feeling so hopeless financially. I had so much debt from that experience. And then being a single mom for a few years and simply not paying much attention. I just kept thinking, well, once my daughter's in school, then I'll start working and I'll pay all this debt off. So I didn't worry a lot about charging things. And suddenly I woke up one day and I had like $30,000 in credit card debt. And I wasn't getting child support at the time. I was just so overwhelmed that I didn't know what to do, and I ended up filing bankruptcy. And the ironic thing is, even after filing bankruptcy, I still was never debt free. There were still some things that I technically owed in some way. So fast forward a few more years, right? And kind of tried to fix things, but like life keeps happening. And it wasn't until my husband and I were a few years later sitting there knowing we wanted to have another child and knowing we wanted to have me be able to stay home with him or her, and how was this all going to look, that we even started at all questioning. And even then we didn't really do much. It all felt too overwhelming. It wasn't until our son was about 1 and the reality was heavy that I wanted to be able to be there with him more. And how were we going to do that when we owed all of this money? We knew we had to make drastic changes in order to A, get out of the house that we were living in, that we knew we didn't want to raise our family in, B, have more time to raise our kids, not be so tied to all of the ways that we're making money, and 3, just less stress. That feeling where you don't know if you have enough money at the end of the month to cover what you need to. I've never been more money obsessed than when I didn't have enough money. And I don't ever want to feel that feeling again, that gut rot where you're not sure how you're going to do it. And you feel like a failure, you feel shame, it's all wrapped up in there. And then sometimes there's layers of denial. It's when you're in that place, it's the hardest time to make change because you are in this cycle and you don't have the extra energy because you're exhausted. But that's exactly the time where you need to muster up this extra inspiration and excitement and pull that together and realize that all of these small things, I promise you, they add up. I'm living proof of that. It's been 11 years since we paid off our debt now. We are about to sell everything and travel abroad, and there is no way we would be in the position we are now, getting to go for this lifelong dream, had we not done the things I'm going to talk about today. So let's get to the list. I am going to start today with 10 things around the house, utility type things that you can start immediately to start curbing your spending. So let's just go back to basics. All of the money you're going to have to pay debt is either going to come from money that's already going out that you cut back. If you can find a way to save an extra $100, $5 here, $10 here, and you start putting that towards your debt, that's where that's going to come from. Or making more money. And sometimes you're not in a position where you can make more money, or it's a little bit harder. And so these are the things I would start with, because there are people in every income range who outspend their earnings, even millionaires, or people that are making $1 million that may be in debt by even more than what they're making. So any income this can work for. I'm going to keep looking at my list here, so bear with me. The first one we did, and it was more symbolic, was cut the cable. In the 4 years that it took us to really come full circle with this process, we saved over $4,000 by doing this. Now, after paying off debt, we stream now 1 or 2 services a month. We're very picky about keeping different things, but I always make sure we don't just have endless options. I had to learn other solutions. The next thing we did was internet. We didn't cut our internet, although some people do. I worked from home, and that wasn't a possibility. However, we did call and compare different plans, different things, ask if we switched or if they had any promotional rates. And we were pretty consistent about trying to do this, and that added up to some savings. Because there's nothing more frustrating than finally finding something and you call your company and you say, okay, we need to cancel our services. And they say, oh, actually, there's a way that we could have saved you 25%. And you're like, thanks for letting me know, jerk. I wish I would have known as your loyal customer for the past several years that I could have been paying you less. So do that in advance. Start there. Because these are things, once you do that, you don't have to think about it again. Once your internet is cheaper or you can lock in a lower rate, you don't have to make a daily choice about it. It's just there. And we like those things. The next, we did the same thing for insurance. Now, I know these are the most unglamorous things, but I promise you they add up. Shop around for insurance. I was a little nervous, to be honest, to go with a family friend. I just assumed that because she was with a big company, she was going to be the most expensive and then I'd be locked in out of guilt, but that was not the case. I was very clear up front that we were price shopping. She got us some prices and was able to combine our home insurance with our auto insurance, and it's been fantastic. So that saved us a good amount of money over the years. The next thing is we were really lucky, and this is less to do with us personally, but if you ever have this opportunity, really look into it. We were able to go from a 6.95% mortgage to a 3.15% mortgage. And that saved us hundreds of dollars every single month that was going to interest that instead we could put towards principal, or just pay the lower rate on our house and put all that extra money towards our debt. So that was life-changing. And now I know interest rates are not great right now, but as if they ever come back down, do pay attention to that. Once we moved to this house, we have a wood boiler. And what that means is we can heat our house. We have a propane tank and a wood boiler. So we can choose to have propane heating our house, or we can use wood. Now, we live on 6 acres and most of it's wooded. So we were able to do a good chunk of our heating throughout the winter with wood that has already fallen or needed to be cut down because parts of it were dying or in the way, things like that. So for some manual labor, we have really cheap heating costs. And then we supplement that about every 2 or 3 years, we'll order about $1,200 worth of wood. So when you average out that we have our heat on from typically October until it's April right now, and it's at freezing. So our heat is going. That's many months of the year here where we live, so it's a huge thing. And then we fill up our propane tank once a year, sometimes less. And then that could be, every time we fill it up, it's about $400. So very economical, keeps things really, really low cost, but it does require more manual labor. So there is a trade-off, but we were willing to do that. Number 6 is energy efficiency. As we could, every time a bulb would go out, or sometimes at Costco or Menards or wherever we were, we would see a big sale on LED lights. And we would make sure to take advantage of that and start slowly replacing our lights with cost-efficient ones. That may not seem like a big deal, but we did everything we could to keep our electricity costs down. We also put little foam, because we live in such a cold area, there's little foam pieces you can put behind every outlet cover. You can go through and make sure your attic's insulated well. Some of these things we had to pay up front for, so it was as we could afford to do these things. But the cost savings came back in year after year savings in heating and cooling costs. Having less garbage, being really deliberate about what comes in our space, has led to less costs. So now at our old house, we had a garbage service. When we started being more aware of this, we could go to a smaller garbage can that they would pick up, and that saved us money. We could bring our compost and things to a free spot instead of paying to have someone pick it up. Granted, we had a trailer and we had the tools to do this. So using the tools that you have, there's going to be different things that I mentioned in these videos that you can take advantage of better than others based on what you have. Now, when we move to the new house, we have a garbage system here where we can have someone pick it up if we wanted, but we chose instead where you pay by the bag. And so we can get a large yellow bag for $2 or $3, depending on the size, that fits between 2 to 4 regular garbage bags full of trash in it. And so we would just put one of those in a big metal can in our garage, and we would slowly fill it. And we have averaged about one of those yellow bags a month only the entire time we've lived here. So that puts us at about $36 a year for trash times the 10 plus years we've lived here. And we have free recycling where we bring it and we recycle it, and free composting because we live in the woods. So we just compost out here. So that has kept our cost so low. And we could have less if we needed. There's dump day where, like, right now actually we're filling up a trailer full of stuff as we're getting ready to sell. We do one of those. It costs $50 for the entire trailer full. And we end up with one about every 4 years or so. We really try to reuse everything we can, or give it new life, or just simply not buy things we don't need. And that's a huge savings, not just from not buying it, but not having to pay to get rid of it as well. Another thing to consider when you're house shopping or looking to upgrade your home. I know so many people who have just chose bigger and bigger and bigger, because when you are in those child raising times, you feel like you need more space. But as someone who's on the other side of that, if there's any way you can get through that without maxing out on house size, you will save in every area if you have a smaller home. Now, we live in about a 1,700 square foot home. What that has meant versus a larger home is there's less windows to replace. There's less blinds we had to buy when we repainted. There's less paint, siding, all of the things that you're going to have to do to keep up with that home. Even if you could afford the payment initially, I encourage you to have less stuff and live in a space that just feels cozy and quaint and charming, instead of larger and bigger where you're paying to just keep everything up. Every flooring choice, furniture to fill the space, heating, cooling costs, all of it adds up. And that has been our biggest life hack, is we chose a smaller house that as we kept up with things, we didn't have to just pay $30,000 to replace windows or any of these costs of what people pay these days to pay for all of those things. We were able to do things in a much more economical way. Now, I mentioned we live in a colder climate. So another area has been, we have a heating pad where my son's room, sometimes where he plays his gaming stuff, might get cold. So sometimes he'll turn on the heating pad and put his feet on it. Or I'll go through times where I'm a little warmer, and then other times I'm colder. I could just have the heating pad on my lap, and it keeps me warm and cozy. We have blankets around. We always make sure to dress appropriately before we change the thermostat. And that goes for summer too. We're not walking around in full pants and sweaters and all the things because it's freezing in here. We will make sure that we are dressed appropriately first before we change the thermostat. My last tip, number 10, is as you upgrade things in your home, be aware that there are sometimes things you can buy things used. And whether it's antique shops, thrift stores, we have reuse centers here where people will get rid of doors and windows and things. And we have gotten solid wood doors for cheaper than what we could have gotten the hollow, cheaper doors. And then I was able to either stain them or paint them. We have a home from the 70s, and so it fit that feel much better as well, and just give a higher image, a better quality to our home. So those are ways that we saved money. And then also, because we have a workshop, my husband was able to build the door jambs. I think that's what they're called, like the frame parts, if we found a door that didn't have one of those. Or a lot of our DIY projects, We had to learn, like YouTube is our teacher, or we had to Google it and like search how to do it and really read books. We have books about how to tile. We took a class one time at a place, a free class at a tile center to learn how to tile because we've saved thousands and thousands of dollars by learning how to do that ourselves. And then we make it fun doing it together. We enjoy that sort of thing. I know there's many of you that may hate that, but there's other areas where you might be an accountant and you could be handling different things money wise, or you are a gardener and you could be propagating plants and starting all of these plants and bartering with people for these plants, or have a beautiful landscape knowing you've done it all yourself and you saved money on it, or splitting hostas and things like that, sedum. There's so many ways that if you think ahead in the areas that you flourish, that you can save money. So our next video is going to be all about DIY items that you can make, like necessities that you need, how we made them, ideas for you, all just coming back to how we paid $48,000 in debt off. These all seem little, but they add up. And when you start to incorporate them into your life, it really is life-changing and so empowering. It's so empowering to know that you can do things a different way and that you're just not a victim of having to pay whatever cost people say that things cost. There are other ways to do things. So that's what we're going to talk about. I hope you'll join me then. Subscribe so you'll be notified. Hit the bell so you can hear about when that video releases. Thanks for being here.